Hey guys, welcome back. Um, Man, I'm really happy if you made it this far in the program. This is the fourth class in Little Leaven Children's Home Child Development Program. My name is Brian Stewart. I'm the board chair of Little Leaven Children's Homes. So let's get into it. Don't want to waste your time. Um, this is the social growth and development class. It is the one of the five pillars of the whole person development. Um, as you know, we have our five pillars are emotional growth, social growth, cognitive, physical, spiritual. Okay, so let's get over to the presentation. I'm gonna share screen, and it's gonna be cool. Here we go. Boom, it's sharing. Just saw that cool thing go by. So you know that my screen is being shared. I'm gonna go over to my PowerPoint presentation, and we're gonna get it. We're gonna kick it. Okay, so social growth and development, Little Leaven Children's Home. Got a new slide transition program. All right, so we're gonna talk about three things. This is gonna be a longer class, unfortunately. It's a lot of stuff in social growth and development, but it's exciting. So so you'll be into it. So even though it's long, it won't be boring. First, three parts to it. Communication is the first part. The second part is relationship management. We're gonna talk about, and the third part is etiquette. Yeah, only three sections, but it's gonna be long, and it's important. It's an area. Social growth and development is an area that's widely not really addressed in a lot of school systems. We kind of address it with when they have like school dances and like pep rallies. You get a little social training there, but you don't really get really good social training because really good social training teaches you to communicate, and we don't even have speech class in a lot of schools anymore. Um, and it teaches you how to manage relationships, and you just don't get that in school. People don't teach you. You don't learn how to manage relationships in school, and it's important. It's one of the most important things. Like in business, the most important thing is managing your relationships and just making sure that everyone's getting along and listening to everybody. It's so important. Etiquette. If you don't know etiquette, man, you're in trouble. So here we go. So communication. Starting off with communication. Communication is verbal. We have it broken into two sections. We have verbal communication and we have nonverbal communication. Okay. There's a theory out there by Dr. Meravian. I don't know if I'm saying that right. 7% communication is verbal, 55% is body language, and 38% is tone. Let's watch this quick video to illustrate what we're talking about. I'm doing a little trick here to get it to play the sound, so bear with me. It's got to be well timed.
Basic principles. No woman wakes up saying, "My don't get swept off my feet today." Might say, "This is a really bad time for me," or something like, "I just need some space," or my personal favorite, "I'm really into my career right now." You believe that? Leave it a shame. You know why? That's why. You understand me? Life. Not a bad time for her. She may be into her career. What she's really saying is, "Get away from me now," or possibly try harder to do it. Which one is it? 60% of all human communication is nonverbal, body language. 30% is tone. So that means that 90% of what you're saying ain't coming out of your mouth. She's gonna lie to you. She's a nice person. She doesn't want to hurt your feelings. What else are you gonna say? She doesn't even know you yet. Luckily, the fact is, just like the rest of us, even a beautiful woman doesn't know what she wants until she My job was to open her eyes.
Oh my God.
Basic principles. No matter what, no matter when, no matter who, any man has a chance to speak on another female. Just needs the right grow.
Okay, so I love that that movie. It's such a great movie. If you haven't seen Hitch with Will Smith, you need to check it out. It's a good movie. But anyways, let's get back to our presentation. Why did I show that video? Okay, so Dr. Marabian, he was talking about Dr. Marabian in that video. He said, I don't know if you can pay attention. You may have been looking at the funny stuff, but 60% of all, I'm going to be more exact because he said 60% was body language and 30% was tone, but it's actually 55% body language, tone, and 7% verbal. Okay, so does that make sense, really? You know, most of our communication is all unwritten. It's mostly only 7% is verbal. And when I say verbal, what do we mean when we say verbal? Let's be a little more clear. Verbal means anything that's using nouns and verbs and adjectives and adverbs. It's verbal. So something written would be verbal. Something spoken can be verbal. It's pretty much the main areas where you have verbal communication. Nonverbal communication, like he was saying, body language, tone. Okay, other types of nonverbal communication could be dancing. It could be painting. Verbal. This is kind of important, especially in the new 21st century communication. You know, it's funny, communication. I'm talking about also social media type communication and texting and things like that. So now that we have these texting, it's important to realize that a big part of nonverbal communication when you're texting is writing it in capital letters, writing it, or highlighting it, or putting in an emoticon. Okay, these are all tools that we use to communicate. These are nonverbal tools you can add to your verbal communication in order to accentuate it and to make it more powerful, to make it more clear. Okay, so but back to my question is, does that make sense? 7% is verbal, 55% is body language, and 38% tone. So you're telling me that I can have clear communication with clear communication with no verbal, just nonverbal? Can you imagine that? Imagine that for a second. Does that really make sense? I'm going to communicate with, okay, here we go. I'm going to do it right now. I'm going to communicate my presentation, and I'm just going to do nonverbal. Okay, except for this screen. I don't feel like taking off the screen. So I'm going to do nonverbal. No, let's take off the screen. So let's do nonverbal communication right now. We're going to do clear nonverbal communication right now. So are you understanding what I'm trying to say right now? Some of you are. What I'm trying to say is that you cannot rely strictly on nonverbal communication as if 90%, as if you can just get it done with nonverbal. It doesn't work that way. So what is he saying here? What is it really saying? What we're really talking about when we're talking about the nonverbal communication, the importance of it is not when you're trying to pass information, but it's when you're trying to relate the authenticity of that information, the urgency of that information, and the purpose of that information. That's when this nonverbal is so important, because this is why. So when someone talks to you, let's say I come over to you and I say, please help me. But if I come over and I say, please help me right now, now I added my tone in there, and then if you were looking at me, you'd see my body and my face is changing, and I'm getting into. Here, let me put it off me. So let me put it back on me. Stop sharing. Okay. Now you should be able to see me. Let me just turn off my thing real fast so you can see. Make sure I know that you can see me. So you should be seeing me now. So there's a difference. There's a, please help me. Please help me. Please help me. Please help me. Obi-Wan, your only hope. Okay. Or it's please help me. I need help. Okay. So the first one, you were kind of like you were. Let me share screen again. The first one, it was like you're sensing that maybe I don't really need help. Maybe, okay, because my face wasn't matching what I was saying. So what happens is that what this means, or what this 55% thing means, it really means is that when you hear something, um, and it matches the body language and the tone, then you're more likely to believe it's authentic. And then when you see that the person is throwing his hands up and is frantic, and you're thinking, oh, it's really urgent that he gets back to me. Or when or it's shouting and screaming, oh, I gotta hurry, help him right away. It's urgent. And then the purpose is more like, it comes in more when people sometimes do things, and or say something like, your wife might say, hey, you don't need to worry about the laundry today. I'll take care of it. I'll take care of the laundry. You don't worry about that. If she says it like that, then you kind of know that she does want you to do the laundry. Okay? You tell by her tone of voice. She does want you to do the laundry, but she's just ticked at you for whatever reason. And her purpose is not for you to sit on sit on your behind and not do the laundry. Her purpose is for you to actually get up and help around the house. Okay? So you have to sometimes that's where this body language 38% tone comes in. It comes in when you're trying to actually understand the authenticity, the urgency, priority, and the purpose. So it's important. Uh, so I have a bullet in here. It says actions speak louder than words. Okay. Another part of nonverbal communication is acting and actually doing it. Okay. Um, the sword is mightier than the pen. A lot of people say, "Oh, the pen is mightier than the sword." No, actually, the sword is mightier than the pen. Actions are much stronger than the written word. Okay, and you can communicate not just through speaking or talking or writing, but you communicate through your actions by doing something. By you say you want to help, but actually help. Okay, there's a. I'm gonna go ahead and jump here to this. In James, this is a Bible verse that's really, really good. I think illustrates this very well. If one of you says to them, go in peace, keep warm and well fed, but there's nothing about their physical needs, what good is it? In the same way, faith by itself, it is not accompanied by action, it is dead. Okay. But someone will say, you have faith, I have deeds. Show me your faith without deeds, and I will show you my faith by my deeds. So it's one thing to say that you love someone, but how are you showing? How are you actually showing that you love them with your actions? That's what. That's why we're saying that, yeah, the sword is actually mightier than the pen. It just is. Okay. So there's a communication cycle. There are 4 parts in the communication cycle. The first part is receiving. Receiving is using all your 5 senses. And you're probably saying, well, how do I use all 5 senses? We'll get into that later on. But one thing I wanted to point out, how do I use, wait, yeah, so I said, I'll use all 5 senses. And you're probably saying, oh, why do you use a sense of taste to communicate, right? I'll get into that, okay? It actually is important. And then what I want to focus on right now, just in the all around of the 4 parts, it's receiving is first. Reason why receiving is first is because listening comes foremost. You cannot succeed in communication if you don't first listen. Okay, you have to, and listening, I'm not just talking about with your ears, I'm talking about with your eyes and with your sense of touch and sense of smell. You know, first thing you do is you receive the information. That's the first thing. Okay. The second thing we can do is we decode the information. Okay. We after we get the information, we have to break it down in our mind and figure out what the information means. Then third part is encoding. So then that's the part where you figure out how it is to best respond to whatever communication was given to you, whatever signal you received. And then the fourth one is actually sending that information. Okay. In Little Leaven's communication cycle, receiving is the first step, like I said. Okay. Uh, and you know, life itself, it is actually a reaction. All right. You know, so there's no communication without first receiving something, without either being a poke saying wake up, you know, the first day you wake up, or a push from your mom saying come out here, it's time for you to be in the real world, you know, when you were first born. um, so so like I said before, receiving information is more than just using your ears. It's more than just listening. Okay, you also have to use your eyes. um, you also have to use you know, your sense of smell, your sense of taste. Okay, here's an example of how taste can communicate. So your wife cooks you a meal. She serves it to you. It's cold. She forgot to heat it up. So you can dismiss that and just say, hey woman, you forgot to eat up my food or whatever. You can dismiss it like that, or you can actually receive that information and decode it properly and say, wait a minute, my wife is pretty busy. Maybe I need to help her out. If she's so busy that she just like forgot to heat up the food, maybe I need to take a look and take a step back and analyze and think about what I'm doing here and how am I participating in the relationship, and then what am I communicating to her. Okay, so that's using your sense of taste or sense of touch. Maybe the food is too salty. She put a bunch of salt. It shows how she was, you know, her mind's on something. Well, there's a communication there, and you don't want to miss that. And when you're really good and expert in communication, expert in social, so you're a mature, very mature socially. You're an expert in communication. You're gonna pick up those type of keys, those type of nuances. You know, if your husband walks in a room and he's wearing cologne, all of a sudden that's your sense of smell. Well, he's communicating something. Maybe he wants to take you out to dinner. Okay, who knows? Okay, but there's you can communicate through your other senses, and you should be using all. You know, a successful communicator is gonna use all five of those senses. That's their ability. So, and a successful communicator is gonna especially be listening, hearing, and yeah, same thing, listening, watching, you know, and smelling and tasting to figure out what it is going on with somebody. Um, okay, one of the most when we're receiving information, we really have to look at facial expressions and body language. Okay, so when someone is telling you something, but their body language, like maybe their arms are folded. Let me just go back to my camera so I can kind of demonstrate some of this stuff. So, all right, I know you see me, but I can't. I need to see myself too. Okay, so you know, I really love everything that you're saying right now. You were such a wonderful person, and am happy to be around you. I mean, obviously, it's not true. You can tell by my face. You can tell by my fact I've got my arms crossed. But now if I say, "Oh man, I really love everything about you." I'm not an actor, so give me a break. But I really love everything about you, and I really enjoy being around you, and it's such a lovely thing, you know, to be able to hang out. You know, it's my facial expressions and my body language. You know, if I say, "Oh, yeah, I love this conversation," or "Oh man, yeah, it's so interesting," um, uh, yeah, I think you should do that. Okay, there's a difference. All right, and let's talk about listening and active listening while we're at it. Okay, so active listening is really important, because when you're active listening, then you're giving him kind of feedback as to how successful his communication is. So it's good to nod your head and say, "Yeah, oh, okay, oh, or say, so what you're saying is this." You kind of repeat it. It's active listening. You know, you kind of repeat what someone else is saying when they say it, because that's helps them to understand that you understand. Okay, and I know that that's kind of doing all 4 cycles, but active listening is really important, and and helping people to understand what you're doing. Active listening done poorly would be someone who's just like, yeah, uh-huh, yeah, got it, right. That's poor active listening. And then even worse is this over here, not even looking at the person. Oh yeah, okay, right. Mm-hmm. Or no, or I don't know if you ever talk to anybody on the phone, and sometimes you're talking to them, and at no point are they ever saying, yeah, oh, okay. And then you start to feel like, are they still on the line? Are they listening? You don't want people to do that. You have to participate in the conversation, active listening, so that way they know, what's going on, and how it is, how it be like, what it be like. Okay, let me go back to the presentation. Oh, I gotta share screen again. Hold on. Bear with me. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Sharing screen. Boom, boom, boom. Back on it. Okay. Back to the presentation. Okay, and emoticons. You have to use in today's communication. You need to pay attention to emoticons when they get sent to you. Okay, because you can easily, and this is why it's so important. Well, we'll get to it more, but you can easily misunderstand somebody if you're not looking at the emoticons and the capital letters that they're putting, or the punctuation. If someone puts an exclamation mark, then you should pay attention to the fact that they put exclamation mark, and those are nonverbal communications. You got to pay attention to. All right, decoding. So decoding is once someone's already sent you information, and now you've got to figure out what it is they want, what it is they're trying to communicate. Because like we talked about before, sometimes people will say the exact opposite of what they really want to communicate. I always tell guys this. I say, hey, when she says she hates you, she actually means that she loves you, but she's so frustrated with you right now. That's really what she means. Hopefully, but generally and hopefully, I'm talking about the guys that are married. The guys that are in boyfriend girlfriend relationship, she says she hates you. She slams the door on you, and she may just want you to be gone. But anyways, so as long as we have eyes and ears, we can receive most of the information we need. It's more than just spoken, though. Okay, when a person is wearing certain clothes, they're communicating something. Okay, when they are wearing like if they're wearing certain things, and it means that they may be trying to get your attention. Okay, it may mean that she doesn't feel good about herself. It may mean that he has, when a guy comes out and he's dressed in clothes that make him look like he is interested in homosexuality, then that's a communication. He's communicating through his clothes. Um, when someone buys a certain thing, why did they buy that? That's a communication. Okay? Maybe they bought it because they don't have a lot of money. You can learn something about people. You can through their actions. Uh, Maybe they're trying to win your friendship. Okay, why did they do that? It's more than just verbal, than just an email or a letter. Communication begins to succeed when you buy information, like I was saying, to determine authenticity, urgency, purpose. So why is that important? Let's get into that. So authenticity, like I was saying before, if they say that they are happy, someone says they're happy, but they look like they've been crying all day. Well, they may be not telling the truth. Um, they say they want you to not help around at the house or help around at the house. Well, they may be saying that, but they really do want you to help around the house. it's during the ambiguous communication that people tend to lean, that it's better to lean more towards your body language and your tone of voice. Okay. If someone's like, if it's a newspaper article, um, or if it's a news presentation and they're just presenting facts, you don't have to worry so much about their body language and their tone of voice, because it's just, they're just giving you facts. It's not, or they're doing a presentation. Although they can use tone of voice and body language to make their presentation stronger and to make their points and to focus their points, focus the points that they want to make. Okay. So that's authenticity. You know, you're looking at you're combining what was verbal with the body language, with the tone, um, and this is for verbal communication. Okay, obviously, or this is for spoken communication. Obviously, there's a whole written communication where you're going to look at the emoticons, or you're going to look at the capital letters, or highlighted or underlined words to understand what people are trying to say. Um, so, and that's talking about authenticity. Okay, we're talking about authenticity there. We're trying, at this point, you're determining. Okay, you're determining whether or not, with authenticity, that someone is telling the truth. Is it true what they are saying? That's what that, because that's a big part in communication, especially when you're meeting new people, or you're just doing things with people who are your associates. Maybe it's a business thing. Maybe you're a police officer and you're trying to interview a suspect. Maybe you're a teacher and you have two kids fighting and you're trying to figure out who's telling the truth. This is when you're using this authenticity, you know, based on the way his eyes are looking, based on the way his body is moving. Is this person telling the truth? There's actually there's theories about when people are telling the truth, they tend to look a certain direction, and if they're looking a certain direction, that means the brain is accessing the imagination, and when brain is accessing the imagination, that means that they're lying. So there's and that's something that someone who wants to master communication, they got to know that, right? Especially decoding. See, and priority. So we were talking before about if someone's yelling and screaming, then we know that it may be more urgent. If someone is saying it quietly, then maybe it's not really that important. If there's no emotion behind it, then maybe it's not really that important. That's why it's so important to put emotion behind what you're saying. Purpose. And then so a lot of times you're dealing with someone who's not the best communicator in the world, and they may give you a bunch of information and tell you about their day and what color something was, but they're really trying to communicate something, but you have to filter through and figure out, okay, he just told me his life story, but what was he trying to tell me? You know, he just told me everything he did today, but what's the purpose of that? What's he trying to do? Is it because they want to? The purpose might be that this person is trying to tell you, by telling you all these things, they want a relationship with you. That was the goal. They just told you their life story. Well, and so what should I learn from that? I should learn that this person's interested in being friends, or being more than friends. That's why they told you all that stuff, because they want something else. Okay. A good one is when the kids want to borrow the car or something like that, and they come over there and say, "Oh, Dad, I love you," and they give you a hug. So, what is the purpose of the hug and the kiss right now? Car. Okay. So that's determining the filter. You have to filter through the unnecessary information and figure out what it is, the purpose of the communication. And the medium of the communication has to be considered, okay? Because if somebody sends a text message or someone calls, at what point do you think it's more important, if they call or they're sending a text message? It might be more important if they're calling, right? Because if they're calling, that means they really need to talk to you, maybe. Okay. So cognitive role, deliberation. So this is so at this point, once you've received the information, um, and you're decoding it. Okay, so you first receive, then you decode, figure out what it is, then there's the deliberation portion, and sometimes this deliberation portion could last a second, or it could last a week, or it could last a year. Okay, you receive some information, and it may be wise not to respond to that right now. Okay, because of whatever's going on. If you can wait, maybe you should wait. Okay, and this is what I tell people. Um, this is heavily dependent on urgency, obviously. Okay, if this person is expressing that this is urgent, got to get to it right away, then you got to get to it right away. But if it can wait, then maybe you want to wait before you respond. So there could be a long period between decoding and then transmitting. Okay, and this is what I learned once, and I think it's a good thing, good guide is in order to be right, you have to be three things. So someone communicates something to you, and you wanna communicate it back. But in order to be correct in your communication and correct with what you're doing, you have to be three things. First thing you have to be is you have to be correct. You have to be right. So when you want to tell somebody something, you want to correct them on something, or you want to explain something, first thing you need to do is you need to make sure that you're right. Okay. The second thing that you need to do is you need to make sure that you say it in the right way. Okay. You have to say it in the right way. Okay. Because if you can be right, and if you say it in the wrong way, guess what? You were wrong. You were wrong because you said it in the wrong way. The other thing you have to be right is you have to say it at the right time. And that's why I say sometimes it will take a day to respond, sometimes a month, sometimes a year. You have to choose the right time to say what you have to say. If someone is, if someone just had a really bad day, how what you think about what they're doing, or what you think about they said to you, okay, maybe that's not the right time for them to receive that information. So it's and you don't want to wait till it's the best day of their life and they just off and just graduated college, and then you want to rain down on their parade and say, oh well, I hate you. Something like that. You gotta choose the right time. Okay, and it's hard, but if you want to be right, first thing you have to do is you have to be right. Second thing you have to do is you have to say it in the right way. And the third thing you have to do is you have to say it at the right time. Because if you don't have all three of those things, then you're just wrong. You can be as right as you want to be, but you're wrong if you say it at the wrong time or you say it in the wrong way. So before you transmit, you have to deliberate sometimes. Deliberate, you have to think about what you're going to say. Heavily dependent on urgency. Okay, so the third step is encoding. Okay, now that you've received the information, now you've become the sender of the information. Before you were the receiver, now you're the sender. So you have to figure out after so now you have to, in order to encode, now you're thinking about what it is you want to say. Okay, what is it I'm going to say? And then you're going to think about how you're going to do it. You want to make sure the person's a part of that is that you want to make sure the person's listening, is in a position to listen and to receive your information. And what you want to do when you encode is you want to figure out what type of medium you're going to use. Okay. And if you really want your message to be clear, like when I'm at work and I need to get something done, I typically will call the person, and then I will send it and have the conversation, and then I will follow it up with an email. Okay, so that way I can make sure he or she understood what it is that I was trying to communicate. Okay, so make sure it's clear, and then it's also good because then you have like a paper trail, and then they can get back to it. Okay, sometimes I'll actually send an email, I'll call, and I'll text. I'll do all three. You know, and then when I text people or when I send an email, now that we have these emoticons, I add those emoticons. And the reason why you got to add those is because when someone receives your message, it, if they're in a state of mind where they're just depressed, they can easily read your message and just get the complete wrong message. Okay, and get the complete wrong. They think that you're, because they think that you're in the same. A lot of times they'll think that you're in the same mind state as they are, and so they'll just take it negatively when you didn't mean to be negative. That's why it's so important to send those emoticons now. Okay, so they understand if you're joking or not. So you can send a little smiley face, say, "Oh, it's just a joke." Okay, and it's even much better, and that's why it's even much better to when you talk to someone to not do it through text message, but it's better to get face to face, verbal, so they can see your face, so they can hear your tone of voice. Okay, it's much better to get on the phone. Okay, so better. It's that way you can have all those. Remember we talked about the different percentages, the tone of voice and the body language. You want to maximize that. You want to maximize that so that way you can show your authenticity and they can see where exactly you're coming from. Okay. And those of you that are introverts, I'm sorry, but you need to get over it. Okay. I know that it's hard, but if you want your relationships to work, you have to get those face-to-face communications. You know, and we'll talk about when you decide to make that work, because we're getting to relationship management next. But you have to do it. And it sucks because the extroverts are better at it and whatnot. But you know, the people have their strengths and weaknesses, and you gotta and when you get over this hurdle of communication, it's going to be better for you. You get stronger. Okay. Transmitting. So this is when you actually put it all together. This is actually the action. This is actually doing it. This is actually handing them the note or cleaning up sweeping the floor. Because remember, communication is actions as well. So you maybe you got information from your husband that made you think that the house isn't as clean as he'd like it to be, and then the transmitting maybe just picking up that broom. Right. Um, and remember, we're trying to communicate, not just words. We're trying to communicate. So what you're doing, this is so important. What you're doing when you communicate, okay, you are taking all of your experiences and you're trying to box them up and express yourself. That's what you're doing when you communicate. You're taking and it's completely, your communication ability is completely dependent on experiences and the things that you've seen. Know how to talk except for by learning from her parents. Okay, so you're taking those experiences and you're trying to put it out there, and what you're doing is you're almost trying to share your soul when you communicate. And in order to do that, you have to use everything at your disposal if you want to be successful, and especially if the relationship is important. Okay. You want to ensure a clear message, because I'm telling you, one of the worst things that can happen to you is to be misunderstood. And for those of you, once again, the introverts out there, listen, one of the worst things that can happen to you is to be misunderstood. It is one of the worst things that can happen to you, because you think that you're thinking one thing and they're thinking that you know, you think that you love them and you're expressing it. They think that you don't appreciate and maybe hate them, and it's happened and it has ruined relationships. Okay, and I don't care if you're introverted or not. I know you want to have good relationships. Relationship management. Okay, so first part of the relationship management is relationship establishment. Uh, The best way, and this is going to seem very methodical and almost computerized, but it's just, we have to look at things from a logical standpoint, okay? So the best relationships are the ones that have clear purpose, okay? You know why you're in the relationship, okay? Those are going to be the best way to establish. It's also going to be, what you're going to do is you're going to assign a value of that relationship, okay? You assign value to that relationship. And you know, if you're really weird, then you can write down the number. Well, not weird, but if you're eccentric or detail oriented, then maybe you would actually have a log and you write down the number. I'm not saying do that, but I'm saying, but you need the value. You need to decide on in your head how valuable this relationship is. Maybe assigning a number, it may just be kind of knowing, but you need to know if this relationship is valuable to you or not. Okay. And it's good to have a purpose. It's good to have goals, clearly identified goals. Okay, and if you have clearly identified goals, and if you have a purpose, and you have value, then you can set up realistic and honest expectations. Because a lot of relationships fail because the expectations are unrealistic. Okay, and you're expecting this person to do that when he's expecting that he's supposed to do this. And that's how the relationship fails, because their expectations are not clear. So really, and when you establish, so part one is for establishing the relationship. So when you first establish a relationship, you should think about why you're in that relationship. Why are you deciding to be friends with this person? Okay, what is the goal? Okay, and if you can clarify expectations, it's going to make it better. If you can communicate what the expectations are going to be. All right. So in relationship establishment, I'm going to show you some examples of some objectives relationships and subjective. Okay, we want to be objective. That's going to be more successful. So with a sports team, a good goal would be to learn 10 plays. And a good purpose would be so that we can win 3 championships. Okay, so you have a clear purpose and you have a clear way of how you're going to do it. A poor goal would be, hey, we're going to practice. Practice. We'll practice towards what? If you don't know what you're practicing towards, like here, we're learning 10 plays. Okay. Purpose. We want to be good. We want to be the best. That's that. You know, what does that mean? So what does it mean to be the best? You know, a lot of people say, well, who's the best basketball player of all time? Well, I think Michael Jordan was the best. Well, I think LeBron James was the best. Well, I think that Kobe Bryant is the best. Well, how do you decide what the best is? Okay, because if it's based on championships, then Bill Russell is the best. If it's based on points, then Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is the best. So what do you mean when you say he's the best? You know, Oscar Robertson's the best. He does triple doubles. I think the best player does triple doubles. You know, that's why I think LeBron James is better than Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan, because he gets all them triple doubles and he can do everything because he's a coach. But let's not get sidetracked. Anyways, business partnerships. You got 3. So a good goal would be to develop 3 products. A poor goal would be to sell products. Sell what? But when you have a goal to develop 3 products, to develop 3 good products, that's a good goal. Okay. Purpose. Have a profitable business. So that means you want to, have more income than outcome or whatever. I don't know. I'm not a accountant. I'm not a economist, but you want a high GDP or whatever. But then is the purpose is to make money. Well, you could be making a lot of money, but you could be spending more money than you're making. Okay. Have a goal. Have a profit goal. Objective. Little Leaven Children's Program. Have a child development program. The goal is to counsel the children monthly. But a poor goal would be, hey, we're just going to give them Bibles. Well, so what? Now they have Bibles. Now what? Who's going to read it to them? Who's going to explain it to them? But the goal is to counsel the kids monthly, and then that's actually going to result in something. Purpose would be to have a whole child developed. A poor purpose would be, oh, we want them to be saved. Saved from what? You know, people want to be saved. They don't know what salvation means. Marriage, goal, go on a date every month. That's a clear goal. Marriage, poor marriage goal, subjective marriage goal. No children in the bedroom. What is that gonna stop? What's the point? Is there a point to that? How do you do that? How do you achieve that? You know, how is that achievable? How is that smart? How is it specific, measurable, and realistic, and timely? There should be a time in there. Purpose, mutual support, better connection. Okay, so this is what I'm talking about: objective and subjective goals. Okay. So back to this is that, when you're establishing your goals, they should be smart goals. They should be specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timed. Okay. And they should have purpose, clear purpose, objective purpose, not subjective. So here's some. Now we talked about purposes and goals, and then now I want to talk about expectations in a relationship establishment. So we talked about how we have ways to have good goals. Now let's talk about how do we have good expectations for our relationships. So in a business partnership, the way we establish clear expectations is usually through a contract. That's the right way to do it. Okay. And if you had a committee, there would be a terms of reference that explains what we're supposed to do in this committee. Okay. In a marriage, okay, we pray in our marriage, and what that does is that you talk about what it is is going on with you, all right, and then people can know where it is you're going and what it is you want to do, and that's why you pray. You should pray as a family, at night before you go to bed, or in the morning, or maybe set a day of prayer, so that way when you're praying with your family, everyone hears what is on your heart. Okay, and that's why it's so important to pray, and then that way people can clarify, hey, this is what my husband is thinking about, or this is what my wife is thinking about, and then we know this through the prayer that they do, and you can know where their heart is, and that allows for clear expectations. Wrong ways to have expectations. Okay, in a friendship, a lot of times we have an expectation of when they're going to support us and when they're going to be there for us. Okay, and then we don't communicate that, and then they're not there. And we think they should be there, or we think that we tell them something, and we don't tell them. Don't tell anybody. This is an example of when your expectations are poor. If you tell somebody something and you want it to be private, you need to make sure that you tell them that it's private before you go and tell them. Okay? And here's the best one when we have poor expectations is with courtship. We go up, we decide that we're going to have a boyfriend or a girlfriend, and then we don't make it clear that we are looking for a wife or a husband. And then what ends up happening is they end up running off doing whatever. And then we're wondering why we're waiting for them. We think we're in a monogamous relationship. They believe in promiscuity. Okay? Because it's a boyfriend and girlfriend, and it's not clear about what the rules are to the relationship. And this is when we have poor expectations. So I'm trying to give you instances where expectations ended up being poor. A lot of times you see it in friendships, you see it in courtships. But then where you see strong expectations is in marriages, okay, because they're praying together and they're talking about what the goals are and doing it regularly. Okay, business partnership, you got a contract with people sign. Okay, so those are just examples of poor expectations and good expectations, right and wrong. Okay, and where they normally end up. I'm not saying that all friendships have poor expectations. No, I'm not saying that. A lot of friendships have very good expectations because a lot of friends, they're very clear. Hey, bro, look, I'm with you up until the point where you're doing illegal stuff. Hey, dude, I'm not with you if you're going to go to the bar and get drunk and act stupid. Hey, man, I'm not with you if you're going to be cheating on your girlfriend. Those are friendships with clear expectations. Okay. Relationship maintenance. Okay, so this is so it's important to note that shared experiences usually strengthen the value of a relationship. And so if you want to have a strong value in a relationship, you do things together. That helps to strengthen the relationship, doing things, sharing, having shared experiences that you can fall back on when times are rough. And good experiences. Experiences that demonstrate love and endurance, right? But what ends up severing a relationship or maintaining a relationship is the decisions that are made when there's conflict. Okay. And what I mean is that's when someone has values with the other person's values. All right. There's this chart, 5 conflict handling styles. Of the chart, you see importance, and on the bottom, you see importance of outcome. When you come into a conflict, you have to give value to the relationship. We talked about how important it is to have value to a relationship. Put value on the relationship, and then we put value on the importance of the outcome of the conflict. Okay? If they're both low, then usually what happens is it's the conflict is just avoided. Okay, it's not important. The relationship isn't important, and the outcome isn't important. So there's no sense in talking about it. No sense in getting into it. We're just gonna go our separate ways, and we're not gonna talk about it. Okay. Now, if the outcome of the conflict is low, and this is very depending on the person. So if person A determines that the outcome of the conflict is low, but the relationship is medium or high, then what they're going to do is they're going to accommodate whatever person B wants. Okay. And so because the person A values that relationship more than whatever is going on, that's an accommodation. Now, when person A and person B, when the outcome is a medium value, and the relationship is medium value, together, and one person's going to have a little bit his way, one person's going to have a little bit her way. Okay, person A is going to get some of what he wants, but lose some of what he doesn't. Lose some of what he wants, and person B is going to get some of what they want, and they're going to lose some of what they want. That's a compromise. That's when they compromise. I want to go to. I want to go to watch an action film. She wants to go watch a drama. So we end up going to watch a romantic comedy. Okay, we compromise. Okay. Collaboration is when the relationship is high and the outcome is high. And so we come together so that we both get what we want. And we just figure it out. And that's the hardest one. You figure it out so you make it so that everybody gets what they want. And that's the best situation usually, is when you can collaborate. Now, and then the worst situation is when you have to compete. That's when the relationship is not as important, not nearly as important as the conflict. And then one person has to have their way. That's not where you usually want to be. Sometimes you get, now, just because the outcome is important to person A doesn't mean that the outcome is important to person B. So if the outcome is important to person A, then it's fine if person A has to compete and has to win and the other person has to lose. That's fine to the to person B, because it's not really important to them. So that's not too bad. It's important to both. Is when you can get into problems. Okay? And that's when a lot of times you end up severing the relationship if you have to compete. If they both think, if the outcome is high and the importance of the relationship is low, that's when a lot of times you end up severing the relationship, because you're like, my commitment to my job, my commitment to my religion, or whatever have you, is way more important than that person. And that's when you just sever that relationship and you go with whatever it is your conviction is. Now, I want to point out there's a danger when you fall into accommodation, okay, sometimes, because the person A may think that the relationship is important and may think that it's not, that nothing is more important than the relationship, and person A may be constantly accommodating. Now, where you get into problems is when you have a poor expectations for the relationship, or poor goals for the relationship, poor purpose for the relationship, and person B, he doesn't care about the outcome, plus he doesn't care about the relationship. So person B thinks that we're avoiding and that everything is cool. Or maybe he's that guy who has a lot of girlfriends, and he thinks that he's not really caring about the relationship. He's not really caring about the situation. While person A thinks that the relationship is so important. And that can cause some real problems in the long run. And that's how you end up with these relationships where the guy and the girl are dating for 6 years, and the guy has been the whole time having other girlfriends and doing whatever he wants to do, while the girl thinks that they're in this relationship and they're going to get married and have kids. Okay, and then she ends up wasting 6 years of her life, and that's not right. But that's what happens when you have unclear expectations and goals. Okay, so relationship severance is the third portion. Okay, generally, just about all relationships at some point they're going to sever. Okay, it's just the way it is. I don't care if you're married or not. At some point, that relationship's going to sever because someone has to die. Okay, so eventually the relationship will get severed. The goals, and they're going to sever for 3 reasons. First reason is the goal of the relationship has been met. Maybe we were on the same sports team and we won the championship, and now we're going our separate ways. That's a goal where, hey, we met our goals, and now we're going our separate ways. Okay. Number 2, reason for relationship severance is goals have been determined to be unachievable. All right. We were trying to sell this product. It wasn't working out. We weren't making any money. People weren't buying it. So we decided to dissolve the company. Okay. Because it wasn't working. Goals were unachievable. It's not working out. So we stopped. The third reason is that the value of the sacrifices necessary to achieve the goals of the relationship outweigh the value of the goals of the relationship. So that means you're giving up too much. There's too much sacrifice. I can't sacrifice so much. I'm not going to give up my marriage for this other thing, or I'm not going to give up my job for this marriage, which is awful, but it happens. So the sacrifice is too great. So the relationship is severed. There are abrupt relationship severances, like what usually happens in business deals and sports teams, and unfortunately in death it's usually abrupt. And then there are relationships that are slowly severed over time. Okay, and they're gradual. And Little Leaven recommends gradual separations, especially when usually abrupt situations, abrupt severances can happen because you had clear expectations. If you had clear expectations, it's easy. Hey, we met our goals. Boom, we're done. But if you have unclear expectations and you're trying to sever a relationship, we recommend a gradual separation. Like you slowly just hang out less, see each other less, and then you just kind of go your separate ways without any animosity. It's important. Oh, it's very important. So I underlined it. Little leaven is values. Okay. Those values. Those values do not allow for relationships that are for selfish reasons. Okay. Because little leaven has values, and their values are gentleness, faithfulness, love, joy, peace, patience, self-control, goodness, and kindness. And you cannot sever a relationship for selfish reasons, according to Little Leaven. And we don't teach that. We don't teach severing relationships for selfish reasons. So we never. It's never okay just to sever a relationship because you care about yourself. It has to be. We need to be patient, and we need to be kind, and we need to be faithful, and we need to love. And when you're being kind and patient and loving and faithful, you can't sever a relationship without really good reasons. Okay. And it definitely can't be out of selfishness. Etiquette. So I'm not going to spend much time on etiquette because etiquette is very specific to a culture, but it is completely important. It's imperative. It's completely imperative that people understand the etiquette of the culture in order to be successful. All right. The truth is that when someone says that someone is nice or friendly or a good person, even a lot of times it's not because they're nice or friendly or a good person, but it's because they understand the etiquette of the culture. Okay, they know that it's proper to say please. They know that it's proper to say thank you. And so everyone thinks they're this great person because they say please and thank you, because they shake hands, they have a firm handshake, because they do a bow if the culture is for bows, if they or any other type of tradition that the culture has. The understanding that tradition and executing that tradition properly. It could be as simple as the way you close a deal. Knowing the etiquette for that makes people think that you're professional. Okay, because you understand the etiquette. So etiquette is very important, and it must be taught in Little Leaven children's homes. And it must be very directly, very explicitly taught. Otherwise, the children cannot be successful if they don't know their etiquette. It's probably more important, etiquette, especially when it comes to going to school, and when it comes to having a job. It's more important than the other stuff. Okay, so this is Erik Erikson's stages of psychosocial development. The first stage of psychosocial development. So the way it works is a child is in a crisis. Okay, as a person grows, they hit a crisis. This is between two competing things. From ages 0 to 1, it is trust versus mistrust. That is the crisis. From ages 0 to 1, the child is going to learn to either trust or it's going to learn to mistrust. And how do we do that? How do we make a child so that when they grow up, they're a trusting person? And if they're trusting, if they learn to trust, then they're going to have hope. That's the virtue that comes out of it. So that means when things get bad later on, so when you from age 0 to 1, if you fail at this from age 0 to 1, when things get bad, when you're 40, it's going to be your ability to overcome is going to be dependent on how things went with your parents when you were age 0 to 1. It's a trick, but it's the truth. Okay, it's what's been found. Okay, so when your baby is when the baby is crying, if they learn that, hey, when I cry, I can trust that someone's going to come and help me. If they learn that, then they will learn hope. And when things get bad, they will have hope, even though things are bad. If when they cry, no one comes to help them, then they're going to learn mistrust. And then when things get bad, when they're 40, they're going to be suspicious and they're going to be afraid. And what do you do to make sure that your child learns to trust? You are consistent. If you're going to go in there, if you're going to let them cry for an hour, then always let them cry for an hour. If you're going to go to them as soon as they cry, then go to them as soon as they cry. But don't change it up. Don't one day do one and one day do another. Don't go off of how you feel that day. You got to be consistent. Otherwise, you're going to end up with a child that is fearful and suspicious. And in the Christian religion, because this is the level is founded by Christianity, by Christians. God does not give us a spirit of fear, and they don't have the Holy Spirit if they've got a spirit of fear. Okay. From ages 1 to 3, it's autonomy versus doubt. Okay. What happens is a child is trying new things, and if they are able to try new things successfully and can accomplish things, then they feel that they can do it, and they will have a will. They will have a will to continue and to work and to get it done. And so, what we do with my son is we give him these building blocks. He's got these magnet tiles, and he can play with those and build things, and he accomplishes things, and he learns to be independent. We let him do things. You let the child do things on his own. Help them to be able to do things on their own, but at the same time, you want to protect them from failure. Okay, that's what you want to do as a caregiver. All right. And I want to point out that it is not good to never be ashamed. So you do want them to have some doubt. You do want them to exhibit, to grow up and have some level of shame. Otherwise, they're going to go do whatever they want, and they're never going to worry about what people are thinking. So they have to have some level of shame. So you can't let them be too independent. You can't let them go off and run off and do whatever they want. There's a balance there. So when we do this autonomy versus doubt, we're not saying that it's that we should never be suspicious. You shouldn't never be suspicious. You shouldn't never be without shame. But that's what we're building towards. And it's better to have hope than to have fear. But there's a good example is the fear of God is the beginning of wisdom, right? So you want to have some level of fear. So now we're down to stage 3, initiative versus guilt. I know we jumped around stage 1 and stage 2 right there, but stage 3, initiative versus guilt. So this one is stage ages 3 to 5, and this is when they go out and they try to do things on their own, okay, or they don't try to do things on their own because they feel that they're inadequate, okay. And then if you want to encourage curiosity, encourage them to try things, because when they do that, and some of these ages overlap, okay, you might have a 2-year-old who's already on this initiative versus guilt stage, okay, so it may overlap. It's not necessarily has to be a 3. So you want them to have these. You want to have a virtue. You don't want negative outcomes generally. Okay, so encourage curiosity. Stage 3. Stage 4. That's industry versus inferiority. Okay, that's ages 6 to 12. This is the ages that we're dealing a lot with. So, for Little Leaven, we're mostly in stages 2 to stages 4 and 5. Okay, a little bit in 3, but mostly stages 4 and 5. Because those are the ages of our kids. So you're dealing with industry versus inferiority. This is their ability to come up with stuff, or whether or not they think that they're not as good as other people when they can't come up with stuff. Okay. A negative outcome could be arrogance, where they just think they can do everything. So like we were saying before, you gotta balance it. You can't just let them go wild, and you gotta balance it. You want to encourage initiative, but you also want to teach them, hey, don't be arrogant. And you don't want them to end up being inferior either, feeling inferior. You want them to be confident, and you're confident. You want them to be modest. So that's the goal. Ages 6 to 12, when it comes to social expectations, you want them to end up being, this is what we're looking at Little Leaven, you want them to be industrious, you want them to be confident, and you want them to be modest. Those are what you're looking at. That's what you're looking for. You're looking for signs of confidence and modesty. And you do this by encouraging initiative, and then sometimes you want to discourage them from going out and doing some things that they want to do, because they're going to get arrogant. Because they're always right. You want to show them that you're not right all the time. Okay? You're not going to be perfect all the time. Otherwise, you're going to be arrogant. Okay. Pay attention on this one. This is teenage years. Okay. This is, now we get into identity versus role confusion. This is when the kid is trying to figure out who he is when they're a teenager. Okay. They're looking, and this is when it be rebellion, and a virtue is going to be fidelity. Fidelity is when they're with you. And to do this, what you want to do is you want to identify. This is why the monthly counselings are so important. We'll get into monthly counselings later with Little Leaven, but you want to identify the strengths, and you want to identify applications of those strengths. That's what you want to do for them to be successful. And that's really where I want us to focus on mostly is what the guidance is for the caregiver. You want to identify strengths and strength applications. That's what you're doing. That's what you want to do with teenagers. Make sure they understand their strengths and how they can use those strengths for a future profession or just to help people or whatever it is that they want to do. Stage 6, intimacy versus isolation. The best thing to do right now, for stage 6 is to really help them with their relationship management. Make sure they've got the relationship management skills. Okay, they're either going to learn to love or they're going to be lonely for the rest of their lives. They're going to be alone. You don't want people to be 40 and not married. We just don't want that. Generation versus stagnation. Okay. Stages 7 and 8, they're not really applying to Little Leaven because we're not working with the kids when they're 40 years old, and we're not working with the kids. They're not kids anymore. But this is what they're going to come across, but we're not focusing on those things. So normally I would ask for questions, but we are not in a question and answer period because this is you watching a recording. So it's basically end of the training. And so if you guys have any questions, then you want to get with me and let me know what your questions are so that we can succeed. Thank you so much for watching the training today. I hope that it was beneficial, and I hope that I'm looking forward to us working together in the future, and I'm looking forward to the children being successful. What we're doing out here is a great thing. Thank you so much for listening and paying attention and writing notes and doing all the things and working with the kids and blessing the kids. God bless you, and see you later.